In Peru, the 26 farmers leaders arbitrarily detained were released in the context of police repression of the protests demanding elections in the country. In Russia, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu inspected troops and flew over advanced positions in the zone of the military operation for the Donbas liberation. And in Qatar, the World Cup comes to an end with an extraordinary game worthy of a World Cup final. Argentina rose as champions. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Saturday, Peruvian police raided the Farmers Confederation headquarters after 14 hours of arbitrary detention. 26 detained farmers were released without any charge. The released farmers were welcomed by a crowd that stayed outside the premises of the Confederation where they were being held in demand of their freedom. Peruvian National Police claiming that in the framework of the state of emergency, slingshots, machetes, banners, and publicity alluding to the demonstrations were found inside the premises. However, the farmers denounced that the objects were planted with the purpose of justifying the harassment. They also denounced that police officers prevented their lawyers from entering the headquarters. And repression against protesters in Peru continues. In social media, they denounced that 4 citizens were murdered in the region of Ucayali. During Saturday afternoon and night, security forces launched a strong repressive operation in the town of Huipaca, in the province of Padre Abad. Unofficial sources report that there are numerous wounded in addition to 4 dead, among them a young girl, who were shot by army firearms. If these deaths are confirmed, the total death toll would rise to 28, according to figures released by the Peruvian Ministry of Health. In the Peruvian province of Ayacucho began the burials of people who lost their lives as a result of the repression exercised by the state forces against the protests demanding political changes in the country. Family and friends of victims accompanied the funeral procession to the cemetery. During the day, the citizens regretted the bloodshed in the country as well as the repression by police agents. Civilians also indicated that the legacy left by the struggle of the deceased will remain intact in the future. The repressive actions of the uniformed forces have left over 20 people dead in the nation. In Peru, Loyo Gloriacano, member of the National Coordinator of Human Rights, reported that the coalition will denounce President Dina Boluarte for the crime of aggravated homicide for her responsibility in the massacres that took place during the different protests in the country.
We are going to record everything. We're taking note of everything. We have no doubt President Boluarte is fully responsible for Friday's events in Ayacucho. She may say she was not aware of it, but she should have foreseen that the protests in Ayacucho could trigger the kind of action that we have seen yesterday. Having deployed the armed forces without warning them not to use their firearms makes her responsible. We, as a Human Rights Association, together with the Human Rights National Coordinator, we are registering all incidents to be able to denounce them. As soon as we have everything on file, we will immediately denounce them at the public ministry.
Peru's acting president, Dina Boluarte, assured on Saturday that she will remain in office and demanded Congress to anticipate the general elections. In a lengthy presentation to the press, at which ministers and military chiefs also spoke, Boluarte demanded that Congress approve the executive proposal to anticipate the general elections. The president also denied the possibility of resigning from office and assured that she will remain firm until Congress resolves to advance the elections. Meanwhile, security forces claim that they are regaining control of the country's internal areas following protests and repression that have left over 22 people dead and hundreds injured this week.
Congressmen, do not look for pretexts not to advance elections. Do not abstain from voting. Vote for the good of the country.
Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at TeleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back from the South. On Friday, Cuban and Venezuelan authorities revised bilateral agreements and evaluated new common interest areas for cooperation. Venezuela's Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez and Cuban Vice Prime Minister Ramiro Valdez reviewed the progress and perspective of bilateral comprehensive cooperation agreement during a meeting in Caracas. The document includes 22 items that cover health, education, economic and cultural development, among others. The parties also work on the search for new common interests and cooperation areas to deepen the already historical mutual fraternal bonds. In the United States, authorities registered 15 million cases of influenza in the country, as well as more than 9,000 deaths due to this disease. A joint report by every Centers for Disease Control and Prevention details that seasonal influenza continues to increase throughout the country. Among the most affected states with a very high level of infection are Washington, Idaho, Colorado, New Mexico, Nebraska, and Tennessee. According to the report, Michigan, Delaware, and Hawaii show moderate levels, while New Hampshire, Virgin Islands, and Alaska and Mariana Islands are among those with the lowest rates of infection. The report mentions that 9 children died during the week, which increased the number of children deaths to 30%. So far, the death toll stands at 9,300. In Japan, recent surveys revealed strong public rejection by citizens to the idea of raising taxes to enhance defense capabilities. In a telephone survey conducted by Kyoto Agency on December 17th and the 18th, 53.6% of all those interviewed said they were against the government's plan to increase defense spending by 50% over current levels. Meanwhile, 39% of those polled say they welcome the measure. At the same time, 64.9% of Japanese reject raising taxes to achieve this goal, compared to 30% who support the idea. The government of Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is planning to increase military spending from 1.24% of gross domestic product at present to 2% by 2027, claiming that over 1 trillion Japanese yen, or about $7.3 billion, will be needed to achieve this goal. At least 100,000 nurses in the United Kingdom participated in a strike to demand a 19% wage increase following the fall in purchasing power and the inflationary crisis. This is the first time that British nurses have been on strike since in more than 100 years. The labour conflict forced the closure of more than 70,000 medical visits and surgeries. The Royal Union of the British College of and a private infrastructure in the coming month, which will supply 30 billion cubic meters of gas each year starting in 2023. In Belgium, EU reached an agreement to reform the carbon market as part of the 27-nation bloc's proposed climate plan. The agreement provides for a change in the emissions trading scheme and compels electricity producers as well as cement and steel industries to pay quotas for their carbon emissions. Under the agreement, the allowances that companies can pay must be cut by 62% by 2030 with respect to 2005 levels. A measure that seeks to encourage a cut in emissions and stimulate the development of green technologies. The agreement also allows to tax citizens for emissions linked to heating buildings and road transport. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu inspected troops and flew over advanced positions in the zone of the military operation for the Donbas liberation. Shoigu visited the southern military district and inspected a grouping of Russian troops in the areas where the military operation is being carried out. He also flew over the areas of the Russian units' deployment and checked the advanced positions in the area of operation. On the front line, Shoigu talked to the troops and thanked them for the excellent fulfillment of combat missions. In Russia, at least 1 dead and 8 wounded are reported after a projectile attack in the province of Belgorod on the Ukrainian border. According to Vyacheslav Gladkov, governor of the region, the deceased was a man from the Russian region of Donbas who was working on the construction of a workshop for a poultry farm. He also detailed that 7 of the injured people are already under medical care, while the 8th person was sent for outpatient treatment after refusing to be hospitalized. The governor also said that the 14 houses and 9 vehicles in the provincial capital were damaged, as well as 2 residential blocks. More news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The Qatar 2022 World Cup comes to an end with an extraordinary game worthy of a World Cup final. Argentina rose as champions under the strong leadership of Lionel Messi. The most awaited sport event in the world did not disappoint. Argentina during the first half controlled the game, getting ahead in the score 2-0. The first from the penalty spot and the second from a wonderful counter-attack led by Messi and finished by Di Maria. Defending champion France would not go down without swinging, and in the second half come out with everything and tied the game. Both goals were scored by France star Kylian Mbappé, the first from the penalty spot and the second a great shot from outside the box. The game went on to extra time, and again a great titan clash unfolded. Both teams scored and had many more chances to get the win. An impossible debut stopped 2 penalties in the penalty row, giving Argentina its 3rd World Cup title. Russia reports record snowfalls in several areas of the country. According to experts, Sunday snowfall levels broke the last 30 years' record charts, with more than 31 centimeters falling over Moscow. Meteorological statistics in the country had never showed such large snowbanks since 1989. The amount of snow falling over Moscow in one day reached 50% of the monthly average. There are some areas such as Dolgoprudny, Mosaisk, Kolomna, and Kashira, where precipitation exceeded 20 millimeters in one day, or Pavlovsky Posad, a place where snowfall exceeded 50% of December's average. Snowbanks have trapped many vehicles, causing multiple transport delays, while airports have had to delay or cancel more than 50 flights. On Sunday, the Tunisian electoral authorities announced that turnout for Saturday's parliamentary elections stood at only 8.8%. Despite the low turnout, the lowest in any poll since the revolution in 2011, the president of the electoral authority described the process as clean due to the lack of political financing and vote buying. Opposition groups boycotted the election, describing it as part of a coup against democracy. The main opposition alliance called on the president to bring all political forces together for consultations. The election took place almost a year and a half after Said deployed military vehicles to suspend parliament following months of political deadlock. In July, President Said used a referendum to push through a new constitution, virtually stripping parliament of any real power. Preliminary results are expected Monday. In Iraq, at least 7 federal police officers were killed on Sunday in an attack attributed to jihadist members of Islamic State group against a truck that was transporting them in the north of the country. According to local authorities, the attack against the unit was launched with an explosive device and a direct burst of small weapons fired near the village of Shalal al-Matar, located on the outskirts of the city of Kirkuk. Police sources reported that in the incident, the officers managed to shoot down 1 attacker and 2 were wounded in the exchange of bullets, and reiterated that they are searching for other attackers who fled. This happens in the context of a sustained violence in this territory after the Islamic State conquered several territories of the country in 2014. Tensions are rising between Burkina Faso and neighboring Ghana following Ghana's claim that Burkina Faso's transitional government invited Russian troops into the country. Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo made the comments last Wednesday, sparking a diplomatic row faced with jihadist attacks since 2015. Burkina Faso has been increasing ties with Russia in a bid to defeat the rebels. Burkina Faso's Regional Cooperation Deputy Minister, Karamoko Jean-Marie Traoré, said a verbal note of protest has been sent to the Republic of Ghana via its embassy. Moscow has been actively courting public opinion on social media and enjoys growing popular support in several French-speaking African countries, whereas France, the former colonial power, is increasingly reviled. On Sunday, the African National Congress, South Africa's ruling party, votes to elect new leader. According to local analysts, the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, is emerging as the favorite candidate after having overcome an impeachment request from the Democratic Alliance, his major political opposition. This request resulted from a scandal known as Farmgate, an investigation that revealed millions of dollars hidden in a farm of Ramaphosa's property. The voting of the African National Congress will take place over a period of 5 days in Johannesburg, with the presence of 4,500 delegates from all over the country. And we have more news coming up after we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.